Now, today marks International Migrant Day, observed to highlight the difficulties and contributions of migrants all over the world. According to Global Migration Data Portal, the number of international migrants worldwide reached 272 million in 2019. Female migrants make up 48% of that. 3 out of 4 international migrants are of working age, or that is between 20 and 64 years of age. Over 160 million are migrant workers. The United Nations says there are an estimated 33 million migrant children, up from 24 million during 1990 to the year 2000. Now, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, thousands of African migrants continue their attempts to reach Europe. Libya remains a popular transit point. There, smugglers take migrants across the dangerous Mediterranean crossing. On the Libyan shore, the migrants face poor living conditions in detention centers. Asta Tal has more.
Abdul Razak Yassin, like other immigrants in this detention center, has dreams of reaching Europe. He left Somalia after his father was killed. Tired of the insecurity, he set off on a long journey across Ethiopia and Sudan.
I took a regular taxi to the borders with Ethiopia, me and 11 others, all Somalis. From Ethiopia, smugglers take us one at a time. They take an individual to each city. We went to the capital, Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, and were there for around 2 weeks.
When he reached the Libyan desert region of Kufra, he was detained by smugglers. There, they demanded more money from him, turning to physical violence.
They use a WhatsApp group to contact our families in Somalia and take videos of every Somali who doesn't have the money to pay. The smugglers beat you and put a rock on your head and say in the video, "Transfer the money," and my mom can see and hear this. But we don't have anything here. We only had a house in the capital, so there's nowhere else I can get the money. The guys here tell me to transfer the money, but I don't have any. It's just the house with 4 rooms and bathrooms, and I sold it.
Now he finds himself in this detention center. He knows of the dangers, with 4 of his friends dying during the crossing, but it hasn't deterred his dream of reaching Europe.
I want to go to Europe. There is no other way for us Somalians. I'll go.
Abdul doesn't focus on the daunting figures of over 1,000 migrants drowning during the Mediterranean crossing in 2020 alone. Instead, he notes several of his friends have reached Europe, and he is determined to join them. Asta Tal, CGTN.
Well, we earlier spoke to Yvonne Ndege, who is the spokesperson for the UN's International Organization for Migration. She began by listing the challenges that migrants face and how these issues can be resolved.
We have sadly lost the lives of migrants in 2 tragic incidents that took place off the coast of Djibouti, in which migrants were killed by smugglers when they were trying to leave, trying to get to another country, and found that the borders were closed. And everyone knows, of course, air, land and sea borders have been closed in many, many places, hundreds of them in the eastern horn of Africa. As a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've also seen migrants stranded in their tens of thousands, unable to get to destinations they seek to reach, but also unable to return home. As a consequence of the fact that many of these migrants take irregular routes to try and reach these countries, we also have the now phenomenon of missing migrants, people who have simply disappeared, vulnerable groups to have been impacted during this COVID-19 pandemic. And what we at IOM, the International Organization for Migration, have seen is that migrants are being excluded, migrants are being left out in some of the responses from governments to the crisis, to the pandemic crisis. And when I say that, what I mean is a lack of access to, for instance, personal protective equipment. Of course, migrants, many of them find themselves in situations where they're unable to social distance. They may be living in informal and overcrowded settings, which everybody knows is an environment and a condition in which the disease spreads what IOM, the International Organization for Migration, are calling for is for governments in the region who we work with to include migrants, first of all, in any health response to the disease, to ensure that migrants have access to the same public services and health services that ordinary citizens have. And of course, with the recent development of approved vaccines, of course, the inclusion of migrants in terms of access to any vaccine.